The first thing to hit the floor was a coffee cup. It wasn't thrown. It wasn't dropped. It simply slid off the edge of the counter while she turned away mid-sentence, mid-argument, really, and the handle cracked clean off when it hit the tile. That stupid cup had "Yours always" printed on the side. We bought it on a rainy day in Vermont, back when we thought matching mugs could hold our future together. She didn't even flinch. I stared at it, half expecting her to say something. A laugh, a sigh, anything. But she just stood there with her arms crossed, her eyes on the window like the world outside had something better to offer than this conversation. Or me. That's how it had been for weeks. Silence in place of warmth. Shrugs instead of explanations. She denied me in every way someone can be denied without actually saying, "I don't love you anymore." And maybe that was the worst part. She didn't say it. She just acted like it was already understood. Every time I reached for her, physically, emotionally, she withdrew like my touch was a question she didn't want to answer. I used to count the days between our moments of closeness. Then I stopped. It hurt too much to do the math. Whatever we had, it was somewhere behind us now, buried under sighs and fake smiles. But that morning, God, that morning, I had asked her, gently, "Are we okay?" She looked at me like I was asking if gravity still worked. "I don't want to talk," she said. And that was that. Again. So I did what I'd been putting off. I opened the closet and pulled out the bag I used to keep ready for weekend trips. The one with broken zippers and one missing wheel. I packed without a plan. No destination, no backup, no speech. Just folded clothes and quiet tears she never saw. Until she did. She came home earlier than usual. I didn't hear her walk in. I was crouched by the dresser, zipping up the last section when I heard her gasp behind me. What are you doing?" Her voice cracked in a way I hadn't heard in months. I didn't stand. I just looked over my shoulder and said, "I'm leaving." Then came the sound I never expected. Not after the cold weeks. Not after the nights she turned away like I didn't exist. She dropped to her knees. "I'm sorry. Please don't go. I'll fix it. I'll try. Just, please, don't leave me." And for a few seconds, I hesitated. But there was something she didn't know, something folded inside that suitcase. Something that explained why I was already too far gone. I hadn't planned on her finding the letter. That was supposed to be the one piece of closure I'd keep to myself, tucked away in the side pocket of the suitcase, buried between old flannel and the shirt she once said made me look reliable. Ironic, considering how unreliable she'd been with the truth. The letter wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even angry. It was just raw. The kind of honesty I could never manage to say out loud without either crying or caving. I had written it the week before. After one of those nights, she stayed late again and returned home wearing perfume she claimed she hadn't worn in months. I knew it wasn't mine. I don't even wear cologne anymore. What's the point when your own wife barely looks at you? She found the letter while pretending to help me unpack. Yeah, unpack. That moment after she begged me not to leave, when she was on her knees crying, I stood there frozen like a complete idiot. My hands were still on the zipper. My mouth opened and closed like I was about to speak, but no words formed. I wasn't prepared for her to react like that. For weeks, she barely acknowledged I existed, and now she was pleading with me like I was the only thing holding her together. And the worst part? I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe she finally saw me again. So I hesitated. She took that as permission. Within minutes, she started unpacking the suitcase I had spent 2 hours methodically filling. Her hands moved too fast, pulling out clothes and setting them back into drawers like we were just reorganizing for spring. I was too stunned to stop her. That's when she found it. Her fingers brushed against the folded page. She paused, slid it out, and stared at my handwriting like it was some foreign language. Her mouth moved silently as she read the first few lines. And then she looked at me. Really looked at me. I hadn't seen that look in a long time. The look people give when they realize they can't lie their way through something anymore. "You wrote this?" she asked, as if she didn't recognize my handwriting after nearly a decade together. I nodded. "You were really going to leave?" "I was leaving," I corrected, finally finding my voice. She clutched the letter like it might fly away. Her lip trembled. "You said you felt invisible, that I treated you like an appliance." "You did." I didn't mean to sound harsh. But when someone spends months treating you like you're only useful when convenient, when they stop listening, stop touching, stop trying, you start to believe maybe you really are a fridge or a microwave. They're for their comfort, not for love. She sat on the edge of the bed, still holding the letter. I didn't know you felt this way. You didn't care to ask. That's when she started explaining. Excusing. She brought up work stress, her anxiety, how she didn't want to burden me with it. But I'd heard it all before. And maybe she had been struggling, I don't know. But she never once asked me how I was doing. Never once checked to see if I felt okay. It was all about what she needed, what she lacked. That's the part no one tells you about marriage. It's not just about sharing bills and a bed. It's about noticing each other, seeing when something is off, and caring enough to ask. And then, she said something that made everything go still. There was someone, but it didn't mean anything. Those words landed heavier than anything else that night. I didn't ask for proof. I didn't yell. I just stood there with that old suitcase between us, realizing I'd been fighting for a version of her that didn't even exist anymore. I picked up the letter from her lap, folded it, and placed it back in the side pocket. She watched like she wanted to stop me, but didn't. That told me everything. I walked downstairs and sat on the same couch, where we used to binge old sitcoms and eat popcorn out of a mixing bowl. She followed minutes later, quieter now. No more tears. Just that awful, empty silence. Then she whispered, "Can we fix this?" And I told her, maybe, but not tonight. Because something inside me had cracked deeper than even I understood. But what I didn't tell her, what I hadn't told anyone, was that someone else had already reached out to me. Someone who saw what was happening long before I did. Someone who had receipts. I didn't even know she had a coworker named Chase. He wasn't someone she ever brought up at dinner, never appeared in the random stories about her office chaos or awkward client meetings. His name didn't exist in our world until it showed up in a message thread, one I wasn't supposed to see. But someone else saw it, and they sent it to me. I got the message 3 days before I packed my bags. It came from a blocked Instagram account with no profile picture and a single sentence. "Check this before you waste any more time on her." Attached were 4 blurry screenshots. At first, I thought it was a scam, some sad attempt to stir drama. I almost deleted it. But curiosity, it has a way of burning through caution. The first screenshot was harmless enough. A picture of Loretta and some guy at what looked like a rooftop bar. She was smiling, not her forced smile for a photo kind, but that unfiltered, glowing kind I hadn't seen in over a year. The caption was a single flame emoji. The comments were turned off. The second one, that's when my stomach twisted. It was a private message, clearly from her account. It read, "I can't tonight. He's getting suspicious. I'll text you when he's asleep." The guy responded with a heart. The third one was her again. "I wish I was with you right now. He keeps asking what's wrong, and I can't even look at him." The last one was the one I read 5 times just to be sure I wasn't misunderstanding. It said, "I'm not ready to blow things up yet. Just give me time. He's still useful. He's still useful." That sentence is carved somewhere inside me now, like a scar that doesn't show, but you feel it every time you move. I didn't react right away. I didn't storm out or call her screaming. I did what I always do. I internalized. I sat on the bathroom floor, phone in hand, cold tile on my back, letting the silence around me settle into something close to paralysis. My wife, the woman who used to wrap her arms around me like I was her anchor, had reduced me to a tool, a placeholder, a provider, and she had the nerve to cry when I packed my things. That night, after she found the letter, after her sudden confession, after asking if we could fix this, I sat across from her in the living room, those screenshots burning in my pocket, and I watched her carefully. She was different now, softer, almost desperate. She was touching my arm more, laughing nervously at things I didn't say. Her eyes scanned my face constantly, like she was looking for cracks in the wall she'd ignored for so long. "Did you sleep with him?" I finally asked. Her shoulders tensed. It wasn't like that. I didn't respond. I just reached into my back pocket, pulled out the folded printouts, and slid them across the coffee table. Her face went white before she even unfolded them. "I wasn't going to tell you like this," she whispered. "So you were going to lie then?" I asked, louder than I meant to. "I didn't think you'd ever find out. That much is clear." She reached across the table, but I pulled my hand back. Not out of anger. Out of fatigue. Pure, crushing fatigue. I didn't have the energy to hold another lie. Not even one wrapped in a pretty apology. "I messed up," she said. "I got scared. I felt alone. I thought you didn't see me anymore." The irony made me laugh. Not a full laugh. Just that bitter, hollow kind that makes your throat sting. "You felt invisible." I asked. "That's rich." I expected her to lash out, maybe even justify it further. But instead, she broke. For real this time. Not the dramatic kneeling, not the theatrical apologies. Her entire body crumpled inward, like something inside her finally snapped under its own weight. I ruined everything, she whispered. And that's when I realized something strange. I didn't hate her. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was just empty. Whatever fire had kept me fighting, begging for scraps of attention, writing letters, folding my pain into silence, it had gone out. All that was left was smoke. And the image of a woman I used to know, sitting across from me, unable to undo the damage she once refused to even acknowledge. I left that night. I didn't say goodbye. I just walked out with the suitcase she had tried to unpack and drove to the storage unit I rented weeks ago in secret. I sat on the floor next to a stack of boxes labeled wedding stuff and Christmas and cried for the man I had been. Loyal, patient, painfully naive. But the story didn't end there. Because what I didn't realize at the time is that she wasn't done. And what she did next almost pulled me back in. It came just after midnight, 3 days after I left. I was lying on the floor of the small rental apartment above a hardware store. Just me, a half-deflated air mattress, a folded jacket for a pillow, and the haunting sound of a fridge that buzzed every 11 minutes. I hadn't told anyone where I was. I hadn't touched social media, hadn't replied to my brother's texts, hadn't even opened the group chat from my old college friends who probably still thought Loretta and I were some Pinterest-perfect couple. I needed quiet. Stillness. I needed time to figure out who the hell I was without her. But quiet doesn't last long when guilt calls. My phone lit up. Her name. Again. She'd called twice earlier, once that afternoon and once just after dinner. I hadn't answered. But this time, I stared at it a little longer. Something about it being past midnight made it feel different. Urgent. Dangerous. I let it ring out. She called again. This time I picked up. I don't know why. Maybe because I wanted to hear how she sounded when she thought I might be gone for good. Maybe because I still had this cracked part of me hoping for something, anything, that made it all make sense. Her voice was soft, strained, like she'd been crying for hours and finally ran out of tears. Wendell, she whispered. I didn't answer. She took that as permission to keep going. I went to your mom's. I thought maybe you'd gone there. She didn't know anything. She looked worried, like I'd buried you in the backyard or something. Still, I stayed quiet. Then she said it. 5 words that sent this weird, sinking heat into my chest. I think I might be pregnant. There it was. The hook. A moment of silence stretched so long I could hear the fluorescent buzz of the hallway light outside the apartment. I'm late, she continued. And I haven't been with him in over a month, Wendell. If it's true, it's yours. I didn't even breathe. I just stared at the ceiling, listening to her words rattle around the hollow parts of my brain. She knew exactly what she was doing. She knew how badly I'd wanted kids. How we'd talked about it over cheap wine and burnt pizza 5 years ago. How I'd built entire futures in my head around the idea of holding a little person who shared my eyes and her crooked smile. We tried for a while, then stopped. Or rather, she stopped. She said life was too unstable, that she needed more time. Apparently, she needed time to send heart emojis to someone named Chase. Now she was waving a maybe baby in my face like a fire alarm, trying to drag me back into a house already burned to the ground. I'm not asking you to come back, she said quickly. I just thought, you deserve to know. The worst part? I wanted it to be true. I wanted there to be something good to salvage. Something that justified the time I gave her. Something that said, see, it wasn't all wasted. But I'd learned something in those quiet days alone. Something important. Loretta never shared things because she cared about me. She shared them when she needed to control the narrative. If she was pregnant, it was leverage. If she wasn't, it was bait. Either way, it wasn't love. It was strategy. I'll go to the doctor this week, she added. If you want to come. That one stung. Not because I wanted to go, but because I could hear it in her voice. She thought she still had a thread. A grip. A way to reel me back in with promises of diapers and late-night feedings and a reset button we never earned. I finally spoke. Let me know when you have results. That was it. Nothing more. I ended the call before she could say anything else. I stared at the cracked paint on the ceiling for another 2 hours, wondering why part of me still ached like I was the one who did something wrong. Why I still had that voice in the back of my mind whispering, maybe it's not too late. Maybe she's really sorry this time. But you don't build a future on top of a lie. And deep down, I knew that whatever this baby might be, it wouldn't fix the damage she'd done. If anything, it would make it more complicated. The next day, I drove past our old house. I didn't stop. I just looked through the windshield and watched the porch light flicker against the early morning fog. My plants were dying on the steps. She never liked watering them. That was always my thing. I kept driving. No music. No destination. But then, later that night, something changed. Because that's when he called me. Not her. Him. Chase. And what he said. It changed everything I thought I knew about the betrayal. The call came from an unknown number, but I answered it anyway. I wasn't expecting anyone, certainly not him, but maybe some part of me had started anticipating the bizarre. When the line connected, there was a pause. Just breathing. That kind of dead silence that immediately makes your spine straighten and your stomach tighten. Then, finally, a voice. Wendell. It wasn't familiar, not fully. But it was male, young, unsure. The tone was careful, like someone testing ice before stepping forward. Who is this? I asked, already knowing the answer before he said it. It's Chase. I know I probably shouldn't be calling you, but I thought you should hear it from me. I almost hung up right then. My blood started roaring in my ears, a kind of white noise fury rising through my chest, and I clenched the phone so tight I thought it might snap. But something about his voice kept me there. He didn't sound arrogant, or smug, or defensive. He sounded wrecked. I didn't know you were still together, he said quietly. Excuse me. When we met, me and Loretta, I didn't know she was married. She said you were separated, that you lived in the basement and hadn't spoken in months. I laughed. A short, bitter laugh that didn't belong in a conversation like this. She said I lived in the basement? I didn't even have a basement. I figured that out later, he muttered. He went on to tell me things I didn't want to hear but needed to. How they met at a happy hour. How she didn't wear a ring. How she talked about her ex like he was some cold, distant figure who barely noticed her. How he bought her coffee every morning for weeks before she finally let him walk her to her car. How he thought he was saving her from something. I didn't know she was lying until one night I saw your photo on her fridge. I asked who you were. She said, that's nobody. But your name was written on a sticky note underneath it, right next to some grocery list. He paused. I didn't respond. I just stared at the wall in front of me, trying to picture the moment he described. My photo on the fridge, my name in her handwriting, and her standing there, calling me nobody. I confronted her, he continued. She admitted you were still married, still living together. Said things had just gotten complicated and that she was planning to leave you soon. I could hear him swallow hard on the other end of the line. I broke it off that night. I blocked her number. That was 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. That would have been around the time she started touching my shoulder when she passed. When she started lingering in the doorway like she wanted to say something. When she found my letter and suddenly broke down crying. When she told me she'd messed up. It wasn't guilt that changed her. It was rejection. She didn't cry because she lost me, she cried because she lost him. The silence stretched again. I just thought you should know, he said, voice barely audible now. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I'm sorry, man. I wanted to scream at him. To tell him that sorry didn't mean a damn thing after gutting someone else's life. But I couldn't. Because he was just another pawn in her game. And deep down, I knew if it hadn't been him, it would have been someone else. She told me she might be pregnant, I said suddenly, not even sure why. Silence. She said it was mine, I added. He let out a shaky breath. We never, he stopped himself. I wore protection. Every time. We were careful. That one sentence turned my stomach into ice. It wasn't just about biology. It was about the intent. He said it like he knew she was capable of trapping someone. Like he saw the same manipulation I'd spent months drowning in. We hung up without a goodbye. There wasn't anything left to say. I sat on that rented mattress in the dark for what felt like hours, the sound of traffic outside reminding me that the world kept spinning even when everything inside you had stopped. Loretta had constructed an entire alternate universe behind my back. One where I was already gone. One where she could flirt, lie, erase me, bit by bit, until I became a version of myself I didn't recognize. And the most painful part? I helped her do it. By staying silent. By giving her space. By assuming love would be enough if I just held on tighter. The next morning, she texted me. I have the test results. Can we talk? I didn't respond. Instead, I printed out the screenshots Chase sent me. I wrote one final letter. Then I dropped everything at her front door. But that wasn't the end. Because what happened later that night, the thing she did next, wasn't a cry for forgiveness. It was a warning shot. It was almost midnight when I heard the knock, 3 dull thuds against the apartment door. Slow and spaced out like someone wasn't sure they wanted me to open it. I had just gotten out of the shower, still damp, wearing a mismatched pair of gym shorts and a hoodie with a broken zipper. For a few seconds, I didn't move. My pulse slowed. My ears rang with the kind of quiet that only comes when you know something isn't right. I didn't expect her to know where I was. I hadn't told anyone. No address left behind, no post online, nothing even connected to my name. The lease wasn't under me. It was a short-term rental a friend of mine let me use under the radar. The mailbox still had his name on it. But still, there she was. I knew it was her before I opened the door. She stood there, put up, makeup smudged like she'd been crying or intentionally wanted to look like she had. She held a manila envelope in one hand and a grocery bag in the other. "I brought you soup," she said softly, like this was a sitcom and I was just staying at a hotel after a silly fight. I didn't say anything. "Can I come in?" she asked, like she had the right. No. The hallway light flickered above us. She shifted her weight from one leg to the other. "I just want to talk." "We already talked." "I left the proof in your mailbox," I said. "The letter. The screenshots. The truth." She looked at the floor, chewing the inside of her cheek. "I know. And I deserve that. I really did." She held up the envelope. "I got the results," she said. "It's not what I thought. I didn't reach for it. I didn't need to." She sighed and placed the envelope on the ground like she was setting down a fragile bomb. Then she crouched beside it, clutching the grocery bag like it was a peace offering. I panicked. "Okay," she said. "I thought maybe if there was something, some reason, you'd stay. I didn't know you'd go so fast." I felt my jaw tighten. "You thought faking a pregnancy would save your marriage?" "I didn't fake it. I really was late. I thought it was real. I wanted something to matter again." There it was. That sentence. The one that burned deeper than all the others. I wanted something to matter again. As if I hadn't mattered. As if my loyalty, my patience, my entire identity wrapped around holding her up through every breakdown and job change and existential spiral. None of it meant anything now that the adrenaline wore off. She stood and took a deep breath. "You win, Wendell. You get to be the victim. I'll be the villain. Everyone can hate me. But at least I'm not running away and hiding like a coward." That's when the mask slipped. That's when I saw the real reason she came. It wasn't soup. It wasn't closure. It was control. She needed the last word. She needed to reclaim power after being exposed. I'd embarrassed her privately, sure, but her sense of image was fragile. Loretta couldn't stand the idea that she'd been caught lying, manipulating, scheming, and that I hadn't fallen apart like she thought I would. "I'm not here to fight," I said quietly. "But I need you to leave." She didn't move. "You're really going to throw away 9 years for one mistake?" "One mistake." I laughed under my breath. "Do you even hear yourself?" She took a step forward. "I lost everything too." "No. You lost me." "That's not the same." She dropped the soup bag to the floor like it offended her. Then she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out her phone. "Do you want me to delete them?" I frowned. "Delete what?" She turned the screen toward me. "Messages. Voice notes. Photos. Photos. Of us. Of me sleeping, laughing, brushing my teeth, crying on the porch the night I found the letter from my dad. Moments she'd captured without my knowledge. Moments that now sat in a digital vault she was suddenly holding ransom. "I kept everything," she said. "Every fight. Every apology. Every stupid moment. And if you ever make me look like the monster publicly, if you ever so much as hint at this on social media, I will burn us both." My stomach dropped. She didn't come to apologize. She came to warn me. I nodded slowly, backing away from the doorway. "You should leave." She smiled, thin and brittle. "I already did." And then she was gone. I didn't move for a long time. I just stared at the soup leaking through the plastic bag onto the hallway floor. That night, I realized the danger of someone who lies with conviction isn't just what they do while you're with them, but what they're willing to do after you leave. But I wasn't done either. Because in the depths of my despair, someone reached out to me with an offer. Someone who knew Loretta better than anyone else. It was raining when I got the message. Not a heavy downpour, just that slow, steady kind of rain that taps at your window and makes you feel like the world's trying to whisper something you're too tired to understand. I was sitting at the little kitchen table in the rental unit, swirling cold tea with the end of a fork, replaying Loretta's threat over and over again in my mind. The soup bag was still in the trash, half leaked onto the cardboard takeout container like it had been bleeding guilt. The manila envelope sat unopened on the counter. I hadn't touched it. Not because I didn't care, because I did. And I didn't trust myself with what might be inside. Then my phone buzzed. It was a name I hadn't seen in almost a year. Callie, Loretta's younger sister. We'd always had a strange dynamic. She was blunt, unpredictable, and allergic to small talk. But she was also the only person in Loretta's family who ever truly made an effort with me. I used to think she was just being polite. Now I wondered if she'd seen all of this coming long before I did. Her message was short. You free to talk? I need to tell you something. And you're not going to like it. That was it. No emojis, no sugarcoating. I called her immediately. Wendell. Her voice sounded tight, like she'd been rehearsing something and suddenly forgot her lines. Yeah, I said. What's going on? Okay, she exhaled. Listen, I'm not supposed to be doing this. Loretta would kill me if she knew. But I think it's gone too far. And you deserve to know the truth. I didn't say anything. I just closed my eyes and braced for the impact. It wasn't just Chase, she said. There were others. Before him. I went cold. Others. One was a guy from her gym. Another was a guy from a conference she attended in Atlanta 2 years ago. There might have been more. I don't know. But I found out about 2 for sure. She swore me to secrecy back then. She said it was just phases. That it didn't mean anything. She promised she'd end it. I was speechless. My mind started pulling threads, trying to tie together timelines, remember excuses, recall missed calls and trips that ended early or stretched longer than expected. All the time she'd come back exhausted and overwhelmed, and I'd offered to run her a bath, and she'd waved me away like I was an annoying suggestion in her peripheral vision. Callie continued, slower now. She always said she loved you, that you were safe, that she'd never leave you. But Wendell, she didn't respect you, and she used your kindness like it was a floor mat. I told her it would blow up one day. And you didn't tell me? I whispered. I wanted to, she said. So many times. But she's my sister. And every time I tried, she spun it. She made me feel like I was the bad guy. Like I was trying to sabotage her happiness. You don't know what it's like living under her shadow. She's always been like this. Beautiful, manipulative, magnetic. You love her even when you hate her. I leaned forward, pressing the heel of my palm into my eye until colors bloomed across my vision. I'm sorry, she said. I know that doesn't help, but I need you to understand something. What? She's not going to let go. Not because she loves you. Because she hates losing. You left first. You exposed her. That's not something she forgives. Those words chilled me more than anything I'd heard so far. I've been thinking like someone walking away from a breakup. From a betrayal. But Loretta? She wasn't thinking about endings. She was planning countermoves. Like this was a game. Callie's voice dropped to almost a whisper. You need to protect yourself. Emotionally. Legally. Digitally. She's smart, and she knows where to hit. Why are you telling me all of this now? I asked, my voice cracking. There was a pause. And then, so quietly I almost missed it, she said, because I think I was next. I blinked. What? She started turning on me last week. Accusing me of siding with you. Saying I always liked you better. That I was trying to destroy her life. She's unraveling, Wendell. And when Loretta unravels, she doesn't cry in a corner, she burns bridges. She ruins people. You need to be ready. My head felt like it was full of bees, swarming with realizations I hadn't wanted to name. I thanked her and promised I'd keep it quiet. We hung up, but I didn't move. I sat there for a long time, watching the rain stream down the window like the whole world was being rinsed clean. Only I wasn't. I was still soaked in everything she'd done, every lie I'd swallowed just to hold on to a marriage that had been rotting from the inside out. But Callie's warning stuck with me. Loretta wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. And I wasn't sure I could outmaneuver someone who was willing to burn everything just to make sure she didn't lose. So I did the only thing I could think of. I wrote her one last message. 7 words. I'm done talking. My lawyer will call. And that? That sent her spinning. I expected the explosion. The second I sent the message, I'm done talking. My lawyer will call. I stared at the screen like it might detonate. For a long moment, nothing happened. No reply. No phone call. No sudden pounding at the door. Just silence. And then, 10 minutes later, my phone lit up with a dozen messages in rapid succession. The first few were angry. Predictable. Full of things like, you're really going to throw everything away? And do you have any idea how this makes me look? But then came the fear. You don't have to do this. Can we just meet and talk one last time? And finally, please don't make this ugly. That last one? That made me smile bitterly, but genuinely. Don't make this ugly, as if I'd been the one twisting the truth, sleeping around, weaponizing memories, manipulating apologies into traps. But I didn't respond. I stayed quiet. I stayed firm. And when the paperwork reached her the next afternoon, I heard from a mutual friend that she sobbed so hard she had to be helped inside. She wasn't crying because of love lost. She was crying because, for the first time, she couldn't spin the ending in her favor. There would be no staged apology, no late-night call to reel me back in, no dramatic reunion. This was the credits rolling. Over the next few weeks, something in me began to shift. I didn't expect healing to feel like this. I always thought the aftermath of betrayal would be loud, grief and fury and cold revenge fantasies. But the real peace came quietly, in the form of morning sunlight warming the ugly linoleum floors of my rental apartment, in the sound of coffee brewing at a cheap diner where no one knew my name, in a book I hadn't finished in years, now finally dog-eared and marked with pen. Callie checked in from time to time. She didn't say much, just little texts like, "Keep going," or "She's quieter now." I think she knows it's over. One day, she sent me a picture of her dog sitting on the steps of my old house. The caption read, "Even he doesn't recognize her anymore." We both laughed. Not out of cruelty, but out of relief. Because the darkness was finally lifting. The last thing I heard from Loretta was a short message. "You really did mean it. I didn't think you ever would." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in a long, long while, I wasn't desperate to be seen. I wasn't chasing someone who didn't want me. I wasn't begging for crumbs of affection from someone who only remembered I existed when they needed a scapegoat or a safety net. I had walked through the fire, and I didn't come out harder. I came out clearer. I started over. I took a job in a smaller city. Found a quiet place near the water. Bought furniture that didn't have memories attached to it. I planted herbs on the windowsill, rosemary, basil, thyme. Loretta always hated the smell of fresh herbs. Now I can't go a day without them. I'm not saying I'm fixed. I still flinch when someone doesn't text back. Still catch myself looking over my shoulder when I laugh too loud in public, like joy might be taken away again. But I'm learning. I'm not nobody. I'm not just useful. I'm Wendell, a man who loved hard, broke quietly, and chose to begin again anyway. And if you've read this far, if you've ever felt the weight of someone else making you feel small, I want you to hear this loud and clear. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to choose peace. You're allowed to start over. Even if it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because some storms don't come to destroy you. They come to wash everything clean. And mine just passed.